Real Business with Alan Wick on 107 Meridian FM. Talking real business with Alan Wick.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Real Business with Alan Wick on 107 Meridian FM. This is Alan Wick, and this is my radio show. I'm delighted you can be with me today. If you end up missing part of the show, or you want to listen to it again, then go to the Listen Again page on the meridianfm.com website. By the way, this is my second ever radio show, so get ready for thrills and spills, because anything could happen. So let's kick off with the show. This afternoon, I'm delighted to welcome two very interesting entrepreneurs. There's Chris Headlam, the founder and MD of Orbital Sound, who I'll be interviewing later in the show, and now Roy Moed, the founder of LifeBook. Hello, Roy. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Alan. Yes, perfectly.
Fantastic. Roy, tell the listeners your name, introduce yourself, and also tell the listeners a little bit about your company.
Thank you. Well, yeah, my name's Roy Moed, and I live in Surrey. I was born in South Africa, and I've been a serial entrepreneur for most of my life. LifeBook, which is the company that I'm currently running, started about 7 years ago, and we do private autobiographies for families. But the point is, it's as much about the author enjoying being interviewed and telling their stories as it is about the hardback books they get.
Interesting. And why did you start your business originally? What gave you the idea to do that?
The concept was born in 2012 after a few years' research at a brain health institute, Baycrest in Toronto. LifeBook was born because we wanted to find ways to do these autobiographies globally. And it started because of my father, who was depressed and towards the end of his life. I wanted him to have a project to live for. I'd failed and didn't really see him enough or get him enough contact with myself, and I wanted him to have a legacy for the family as well. So I got an interviewer to go and see him, but I started too late, and we only got 35 pages of his stories. So I vowed I'd find a way for other families around the world to not go through this. And I thought to myself, well, you think you're a serial entrepreneur, so how about applying your logistics background, which was from the airline industry, to something a little bit more challenging and help elder adults enjoy their lives just a little bit more and leave the world with thousands of legacies. So I had to find a way to do it globally and affordably.
Yeah, I find it quite common that people start businesses from a personal experience, something that they notice that's happened either with themselves or their families, and then the idea springs from really quite a heartfelt place. And so what about the story of your business to date? You know, when did you start it? How long has it been going, Roy?
Well, yeah, I think from what you said earlier, every business starts because of a passion of some sort. And that was my passion then. So I started in 2012, and it started with a project in Canada to actually look into how we could do this on a global basis. And the breakthrough for us was deconstructing the interviewer from the writer. So in order to be able to do autobiographies all over the world, we couldn't afford to send writers to everywhere. So what we did was we found local interviewers who had empathy, active listening, and were cultured. We did background checks into their backgrounds, because I'm not going to send someone in to see your 92-year-old mum who might have a criminal record. And then we used a separate writer. So the beginning part of that, once that worked out, to deconstruct the two, was to build a platform so that we could handle thousands of interviews around the world at any one time. And that took quite a lot. It took a couple of years, took a couple of million of investment from numerous interested parties and a venture capitalist. And that was how I got the thing off the ground, but producing it on a basis that it was really scalable and would work long term, and above all with integrity, because you're dealing with elder adults here who can be vulnerable or not, And it's really important that we were above any possible contention of not having the integrity to deal with these people.
So you're very clear about your values from the beginning, that it sounds like you were ambitious in terms of your goals. You knew you wanted to scale from the beginning, but as long as it accorded with the clear values that you set up from the beginning.
Yeah, it was interesting. In 2011, 2012, I saw Dragon's Den with Deborah Meaden tearing apart a biography service and saying you wheedle your way into people's lives and they end up with being beholden to you and owing thousands of pounds, and you're disgusting, get out of here. And I thought, as I was just thinking about LifeBook at the time, and I thought, well, if I'm going to create a business, first of all, I want people to be totally transparent with a fixed price so they didn't have to pay a penny extra. And secondly, I wanted them to have contracts where they could break them at any time just because they didn't like them, rather than be tied into something.
And can you, remembering back to when you started the business, and obviously going on from the experience you had with your own father, can you remember what specific goals? I can hear already, Roy, that you had goals to scale and for it to become a big business as opposed to, little one-man band type of lifestyle business. But did you have any specific goals when you started, either commercially or geographically or whatever?
Yeah, it's interesting because my previous businesses were in airline catering and food, and although it was a business that had been built up from 2 people in a garage to 600 globally, and it was a very successful business, I never really felt I'd added any value to people's lives through airline food. And I thought that if I wanted to now apply myself to have some purpose myself, I wanted to create what I call a social business. Not a social enterprise, it's a commercial business in a social space, because I'm not able to afford to run the business as a charity. So I needed to make it profitable to be able to do this on a global scale for people. So that was really my objective from the beginning, is to not just be a lifestyle local business, but to find a way that would have real momentum in the years to come.
Yeah. And was there a time when you knew that it would succeed? Do you remember a particular moment when that may have happened?
Success, it's interesting. It depends how you define it.
Yeah.
I reckon that success for me was after the first LifeBook we created of a 96-year-old private in World War II, who for the first time discussed surviving Dunkirk after being moved from his platoon the day before they were wiped out. And he'd never discussed this with his family. It was survivor's guilt, I suppose. And when that family got that book and they could actually share the story, for me that was success, because even if I did nothing more, now, years on, that was the first book we did. Years on, our oldest clients he's 105 now. He did his first book when he was 103, and he's done 2. So I can mark success by looking at the bookshelf in the office with several hundred completed private autobiographies. But financial success and whether the business is able to do that, you just fight to do that all the time. And we know the model works. We know we can do them in Beirut, in Birmingham, Alabama, anywhere in the world. But it's how do you get it to the critical mass that means it will financially keep sustainable and developing itself.
Yeah, that's very touching and very moving to hear that story about your first book. We're going to have a short break, and after the break I'm going to ask you about your background and business training.
Sure.
Real Business with Alan Wick on 107 Meridian FM. Talking real business with Alan Wick.
And so, looking back, you obviously were an experienced businessman before you started LifeBook with your airline catering business. But thinking about training, and you know that my theme is very much around learning and training and so on, and carrying on learning all the way through our careers. Did you have formal business training at any time in your career?
That's an interesting one. I always say the business school I went to was UOL, which was the University of Life. As many entrepreneurs, I was dyslexic. I failed my A-levels, and I got kept down a year, and so I couldn't go to university. But between the age of 19 when I left and 25, I had 29 jobs.
Gosh.
I think I was great at the interviews, but not so great at the jobs. But I learned so much and made so many contacts, and despite my lack of education, I started the first of my 10 businesses.
Gosh.
In a room with a partner and £4,800 of savings, and built it into an international business. So I think it was learning along the way. I could never go to a business school through the front door, but it's interesting because I've lectured or been a case study at INSEAD and London Business School, but no, I wasn't smart enough to have an official business training.
And any people that inspired you, any particular heroes in business?
Well, a couple, apart from my father, who was a serial entrepreneur himself and always made me understand that, there's always a way and you can find a way to do something if you work around it. I also, the last person who fired me, actually, he was somebody who I trusted implicitly, and he was told to fire me, and he said, "Roy, don't worry." He said, "I'll make it up to you, because just do this favor, go quietly." And I did, and his name's John Harwood, and he basically did me proud, and for the next 3 or 4 years, he helped me build my first business by linking me to contacts in the airline industry.
So interesting that from that experience, it could have been very negative, but in fact it turned out to be real positive. And I think that's something, that I found in common with entrepreneurs, optimism, eternal optimism, and seeing everything as a challenge rather than something to drag them down. And so looking at your lifestyle in terms of work-life balance, time at home and so on, what would you say has been the impact of owning a business on that?
Well, it's, again, an interesting question, because in my first businesses, I actually got to a point where I suppose as I turned 50, I managed to get the work-life balance right, and I squeezed running 3 businesses I was running then into a normal time and was able to go and do some hobbies and enjoy myself. Once I got into LifeBook, it became a passion. And, this is Sunday evening and I'm talking to you, and it's 7 days a week now. So I think you've got to be committed, and you have to be able to take that on. My father was different. He never entertained at night or weekends. He played his golf. But he was satisfied with getting to a certain level of his business, which was very good. But I'm at an age now where doing a startup, like I was 58 when I started LifeBook, you really have to put the effort in, and you have to be committed that this is your life now.
How do you prioritize the softer, more cultural sides of running a business with what I call the commercial, the harder aspects of running a business, the whole balance between those, with whether your staff are 2, 20, 20,000?
I don't really. It's kind of a blend, and thanks to the earlier businesses I was involved in, the global airline food industry, it took me to many places, met many people. I'm involved with a number of networks. The best that's ever helped me is a network called YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and it's a network of 26,000 CEOs globally, and this helps you on a personal and business front. I'm now the regional director for mentoring, which I know is close to your heart, because, 2 things. One is mentoring is about giving back and enabling younger entrepreneurs to develop faster. But I also believe that elder people, i.e. my age, can be mentored as well. There are many youngsters who can teach me a thing or two about life as it is today and how to operate in business. And I encourage 35-year-olds to be mentors to 60-year-olds.
Fascinating. Now, we've got to take a short break to pay our bills, after which I'm going to be asking about your greatest achievement and your biggest mistake.
Lovely.
Live local, love local. 107 Meridian FM.
Real Business with Alan Wick on 107 Meridian FM. Talking real business with Alan Wick.
So what would you say has been your greatest achievement in your business so far?
I think in LifeBook, it was taking what is a traditional publishing model that, and you know, when you go into an industry and you start trying to disrupt or deconstruct it. So going into a private autobiography space with traditional writers who knew how to do it and not having a clue. As I said, I'm dyslexic. I should hardly be a publisher now, and that's what effectively I am. And trying to look at another way of doing it, and we achieved that. And I was told it could not be done, but now there are 7,000 people around the world who are holding a LifeBook in their hands or on their bookshelf.
Yeah.
So I know I've worked out how to do it. And when we interview people for ghostwriting jobs or editing, they still tell me it can't be done. But we are doing it, and we're doing it at a price which is like half the price of what people expect. But that's how you disrupt.
Incredible. And then looking back, and again, the focus on learnings, what would you say has been the biggest mistake so far and your learning from it?
I think you've got to have confidence that you know what you're doing when you have an idea. And along the roller coaster ride, you kind of get put off, like I was talking about people telling me it couldn't be done. But also, you go through a stage, you get investors on board, you get a board of directors, and you think or you feel that they, you know, if you've got them on board, you should listen to them. And you start questioning your own faith. And, you know, am I right? And maybe they know better. And if I hadn't challenged that situation, then LifeBook wouldn't exist today. But it's a hard thing to do. So my biggest mistake was really at the beginning, accepting and standing back and keeping quiet when I knew the passion, I knew the reasons, and I knew our strengths. And that wasn't going and developing an app. It was creating printed private autobiographies for legacy for families.
I see. And any others that might be useful, remembering that the focus for this is for startup, early stage businesses, and also listeners who are thinking about starting a business for themselves. They may have had a similar experience as you did, Roy, with your father, something that affected them, and they're thinking of, right, I think I'd love to start a business, I'd love to do my own thing. Anything else that you learned from your experience so far with the LifeBook that you might pass on?
Yeah, there are lots of things, but the key is obviously, I mean, it sounds very obvious that we always underestimated is cash and cash flow, and that is so much more important than anything you do. So the model with LifeBook I created was a very cash flow positive model. And I think the ability to take your idea and stick your toe in the water. I took this from Tom Peters, if you remember him, in Search of Excellence.
Yes, great book.
It's a great book, and I think everyone should read it. But,
I agree.
What he said was, put your toe in the water, and if you get burned, take it out, and if it's warm, then put it a bit deeper. And I think we try to analyze to the nth degree as to how it would work. Now, you refer to Steve Jobs, and one of his marketing precepts was that he couldn't do market research for an iPod because nobody knew. They wanted 1,000 records on a block. So any market research he did would have been useless. And I kind of feel that with LifeBook, you know, nobody knows they actually want a private autobiography. Family members might have said, oh, Dad, you should write your story. But actually knowing that that's what you want. So it's a real tough challenge for us to actually make people understand that that's there and available.
And was there ever a time that you felt like giving up? And I'm talking about LifeBook rather than the airline catering business, when times were tough or there were particular problems and you thought, oh, I just can't take it anymore.
Yeah, usually every Sunday evening before I go back. No, it's hard and it's full of challenges. And, you know, I've often felt like giving up. But, you know, when I get to that point, and this is a great thing for people, is I think to myself, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And that's why it's different, and that's why I'm deconstructing. Years ago, I had a girlfriend who once said, you know, I don't have any problems. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, if I have a problem, there's a solution, so I don't have any problems. And, it's that which is driving LifeBook today to succeed.
Interesting. And then turning now to the future, Roy, what would you say is the biggest challenge for the business looking forward?
I think it's to our business and to many businesses. The current economic environment doesn't help it. It makes it even worse. But decision-making, any business, whether it's B2B or B2C, decision-making can be excruciatingly slow. We've got customers who want to do their LifeBook for their father or aunt or whatever it is and pontificate about it. We even had a guy in Scotland years ago with a 107-year-old aunt who said, "Let me think about it."
Gosh.
I won't tell you what happened, but that was not a book we did.
No.
But the point is how to as a challenge, how do you persuade people, any customer, to make a decision? And often it's a decision just to say no, because then you can stop wasting money on that customer and get on with the next. And it applies equally to, a B2B situation where if you could not waste time on rebidding and getting involved and meeting people who are never going to buy. So it's a big challenge to find ways of speeding up a decision-making process.
Yeah, I remember speaking to an early stage business in a complete different sector from yours, Roy, a year or so ago. And although they had a really marvellous service that when it was bought was loved and used for years, the decision-making process with that particular business in that particular sector was so long that they were worried about cash flow. And in the end, their solution was to come out with something that that potential customers could buy and take on reasonably quickly, pay for. So that became a quick decision-making product for them that kept them going while they were going through the much longer buying cycle of the main service. And that's what got them through. And I think each business is going to find its own solution.
I think that's good, and in America they do that a lot, but they kind of call it bait and switching there, where they bring you in with a lower price product and then they sort of upsell or try and get you to the next product. And I just felt with the kind of customer base we have of elder adults, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be transparent. The price is on our website. Nobody can complain that we've sold them a one-size product, and now we've upsold them. So whilst I understand what you're saying, because it's a great way of generating cash flow, I think in our space it was not relevant.
Okay. We're coming towards the end of the interview, Roy, and I'd like to ask you, is there one important learning, the most important learning you say you've had in business? And I'm thinking of both your airline catering business and LifeBook.
Yeah, I think you're often too early with the concept. So when you've got that idea, you might be 5 years too early. I've often had ideas which sort of take 5 to 8 years to come out. But follow your ideas, and above all, bring your stakeholders along with you. They're going to make or break you. And with LifeBook, we've had to do that with our group of stakeholders, both our printer, our publishers, and all our staff. And so the biggest thing you can do is make sure that all your stakeholders are involved. And I know my printer, when I was complaining about 7 years with LifeBook and how hard it was, he said to me, and this is the best bit of advice I got, he said, "Well, Roy, what you've got to realize, it takes up to 10 years to be an overnight success."
Terrific. Well, Roy, thank you so much for joining me on a Sunday afternoon. It's been fascinating hearing about LifeBook, and very best of wishes for the future. And perhaps we'll check in with you in 6 or 9 months' time and see how you're doing.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Alan.
It's a pleasure.
Take care.
Bye.